Okay, dreamer please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be checking out Kyle in this video for an offensive team. And why did I choose Kyle out of all heroes is because he is actually one of the 3 heroes left that has reflect immunity provided. And the first is Velika, but she only gives it to herself. The second is Aragon, and the last one is Kyle. He attacks twice on basic attack, and also every third attack he does have a boom effect, same as Regenlave, so this will not happen because of the current passive buff disable. For his first skill, he does have a single target, 600% physical damage to the one with the highest defense, ignores 30% defense, and has additional lethal rate. He also has an AoE that deals 250% and also increases the damage the targets take for the next 3 turns. Finally, his awakened skill does 400% to all enemies, 50% chance to silence, and also change their formation. So the silence again overlaps with Yonhee and Dylan's, so not the most ideal kind of CC that he should have, but it is what it is. Double crit, double counter on him. Okay, Guardian Ring with Electrify as well, and for his jewels, I've given him Survive with 1 HP, counter attack damage, and increase crit and lethal rate. Now the reason why I'm giving him counter attack damage is because on his passive he does increase 20% counter rate innately, so that brings his counter to supposedly 95%. However, during several tests I realized that this may be actually bugged, so I decided to give him the counter rate jewel instead. And then for his fighter soul, I've given him a more offensive kind of setup with counter rate and also status cast rate increase so that he can land the electrify better. Also for his traits, blind resist, sleep resist, and stun resist. Blind is because right now there's a lot of blind going on. I want him as a counter hero, so he needs to have blind resist in order to function. So him being my main counter is going to make Yonhee the second counter in this case. And my Yonhee does still have counter. I didn't really remove it, I just changed certain percentages of her counter rate and lowered it such that Kyle can function better. So just to share briefly about my team, I'm of course using a physical team with Fenrir. So as long as you have Fenrir on the field, I will go with a full crit weapon setup on my allies because that will balance out the crit and lethal percentages better. And here Kyle counters and electrifies the Fenrir on the opponent's field, so it's pretty good. As you saw, he did pretty decent counter damage, and it also proc the crit and lethal because his crit and lethal is actually high if you saw from my equipment just now. He also electrified the Yonhee here, which is great, and his crit is actually 85% with lethal being about 70%, 77% or thereabout. So with the counter attack damage duo, I would really expect him to hit really hard when he counters. Unfortunately here, this enemy has Suffocation from Tara, which is a pretty rare hero and also inflicts complete skill cooldown increase on me. Thankfully my Yonhee did Awaken skill. And his Yonhee also did an Awaken skill. And killed off my entire team. The issue I had with this is that he did not counter when Tara striked, he did not counter when Yonhee used her Awaken skill, so all these just made me very confused because he had 95% counter, just bear that in mind. Over here he uses his single target, it does 45,000, which is not the most ideal damage on a single target with 600%, okay, and he does have very high crit and lethal as well, so I would say, you know, compared to Lu Bu, if you think about Lu Bu, of course Lu Bu is Mythical Awaken, his single target hit so much more. So I think for Kyle to be usable, he really needs a huge buff in his stats. In fact, for all Awakened heroes, I think they still need even greater revamp in terms of stat boost. And yeah, you realize that, you know, here Milia does an AoE, and thankfully he does counter very hard. You know, each hit was about 11,000, so that's good. With the counter attack damage duo, do bear that in mind. Unfortunately, the Wukong doesn't hit him. So another bad thing about, you know, having an awakened hero as a counter unit is that for those skills that, you know, when the enemy only specifies to target the ones with the highest defense or highest attack, you can be very certain that those skills will not touch your Kyle, because Kyle will not have the highest defense, will not have the highest attack, and that is something that will not make him usable for his purpose because he is supposed to be a counter unit after all. Sadly, he missed the Yonhi here. He had one job. He did kill the Wukong though, so that was good. But yeah, as I was saying, there are certain attacks that will completely go through him, escape him, not touch him. And if this was a support unit, if he was a support unit, I would be very happy. But thing is, he isn't. So it is at this point whereby I decided that, you know, screw the counter attack damage and I'm gonna give him more counter instead because I think his passive is actually pretty bugged. He does perform better afterwards, so let's just stay tuned for that, okay? One more thing to note is that in this particular video, when I was testing him, I kind of accidentally went into Supreme, which just made everything harder because in Supreme things are so different. Players are super strong, and if you don't use certain meta heroes, it is actually very difficult, and their gear are so good that sometimes the damage that I deal is not even, you know, the damage that I hope to see. Sometimes it's just too low, so that may not be a Kyle problem, that may just be a tier problem. And this is just something that I want to disclaim. Because as you guys know, I usually do my testing in Grand, so right now I'm in Supreme and it's a pretty high level. He electrifies really well, and I would say he countered both attacks in the first 2 turns, so at least I see the duo coming into effect, and that's really good. And again, like I said here, Dylan's completely just bypassed him because he hits the 3 enemies with the highest attack, I believe. Which can be good and bad because, you know, missing him means that my team has more damage reflection immunity. It will be there for a longer time because you realize, if you just saw earlier, this team actually has a Rudy, but you did not feel the effect of Rudy because my team wasn't taking any reflect damage at all. If he did not electrify that Fenrir, I could have been dead. So at least he does his job now, and yeah, basically the reflect immunity came in super handy. And in this match we do have Trude, I believe, and Trude does have 50% reflect. He uses his skill first, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is, you know, because now the Guardian Rings are still active, so if he uses his skill first, he doesn't do much damage, it's totally fine. At least I know that when the Guardian Rings of the enemies fall, then my other skills will be available. Other proper skills, more damaging skills will be available to land. Okay, but the thing is, if he uses his skills first, then in a way it doesn't help much because it doesn't do much turn decrease or whatsoever, so they may not be the most useful skills. So the enemy's Trude is very active, which is prompting my Kyle to counter her and look at that damage dealt and electrify as well. And there's no reflect damage taken, so that's super good. And he is actually very protective. However, you know, the enemy still hits insanely hard, so I still cannot really find a team whereby he can fit in. And even though he helps the offensive team a lot, or helps basically any team from reflect damage, he cannot really help in this case because unfortunately he is also a glass cannon, so he dies very fast. Unfortunately, I died to burn. So it's very fortunate that I met this team. This enemy had a Rudy and a Trude. Okay, so there's double reflect right here, which means he could have wiped out my team very early because my units will be taking all sorts of reflect damage, and I think my backline can hit pretty hard, especially with Fenrir, because the concept of my team is supposed to hit really hard. So with Kyle, I don't have to worry about that at all. And he also helped to electrify the enemies, which is gonna help lower their efficiency by a huge amount. Fortunately, Rudy completely missed everyone. He did completely just ignore Kyle though. So yeah, as I said, the drawback is that because Kyle has lower stats, sometimes he will not be targeted, ironically. He kills off the cult, which is great. You can really feel the power when he counters, right? It's super hard hitting, except that the damage output itself isn't really that hard hitting after all. And besides reflect, it doesn't really benefit the team much. So that is why I feel that if he needs a remake, I feel he will have to have something more, or at least get a better skill set, because that single target skill that he has is really not gonna cut it right now in the current meta. And I mentioned before, I think single target skills need to have an extra oomph to make them more relevant, especially right now since turn decrease is such a thing. So single target skills should be given like maybe a 2-turn buff duration decrease kind of effect, or maybe also add on a status effect so that, you know, he can be better. At least that using that skill won't feel like a waste. Again, he's not really countering for until now. I guess he was not targeted, but thankfully his electrify came through. I was not that aware of my team being so completely non-resistant to silence. Thankfully his electrify is really going through very well. It is only a 70% chance to electrify. There's nothing that increases debuff cast rate from my team. Kills off the Wukong. He's doing his job really well in this match, while also providing me the reflect immunity, but I don't think I need reflect immunity here in this match. So it's also pretty oh, the cult is insane, come on. Gotta be kidding me. Anyway, yeah, I was saying that, you know, oh, my Yonhi did not bad too. And my Fenrir healed back completely from the Yonhi basic attack. Okay, as I was saying that, you know, it's very conditional for his passive, because you have to really meet a reflect team, reflect units for it to be useful. Otherwise, his only utility is the hitting twice on the basic attack, because right now you can't have his boom effect either. So there's really nothing much in his passive that helps him, and in fact, as I said, his counter rate passive line is also a little bugged. So yeah, his kit is just empty, and then his counter is the only thing he has. So I mean, despite having a remake earlier this year, right now he is no longer viable. And in fact, when he got the remake earlier this year, he was also not really used, and I'm trying my best to make it work. At least in certain matches he is doing what he's supposed to, and I'm glad for that. And in fact, you know, it took me a really long time to record the video for him. I think one of the major reasons is also because I was playing in Supreme, and it was completely unintended, but you know, it still works, and that's actually one of the more surprising things, even though there were a few consecutive times where I was losing a lot, but it's okay. And I guess that's what I can do for Kyle. So what do you guys think of Kyle? Remember, he is literally one of the 3 heroes that have damage reflect immunity provided. So we have one more hero to go, and that's Gyarados. So be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, and see you!